Welcome everyone. Again, Frank DiMora here, giving you the news, the current events, and connecting the dots between these events and Bible prophecy. So let me get right into it so we don't waste any time. There's a lot of news today for November the 28th. And first of all, I want to show you, if you're new, I always give the scriptures first. You'll see the prophecy there about Israel in the last days in Jeremiah 30 verse 3, and also in Isaiah chapter 43 verses 5 through 7. Now, what we are told in these prophecies here is that in the last days God was going to bring back the Jews back into the homeland. We know that this is already underway. The major portion of this prophecy obviously was fulfilled on March 14th, 1948, when Israel was born again as a nation. That was a major sign that this generation is going to be here to see Jesus Christ come back, the second coming. And so knowing what the prophets said, I've been showing you over the years the different peoples and what countries they're coming from that are migrating back from their own nation back into the homeland to fulfill this prophecy. They may not even know it, that they're doing this to fulfill prophecy, but those of us who are watching the news, we understand what's going on. Now, the Lord did tell us in this case that he was going to bring the people from the south back in to Israel, when he was going to order them up, give them up to the south, and do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar, my daughters from the ends of the earth. All right, so we know that. Now, what I wanted to show you is I've been keeping track here of what's going on with the Ethiopian Jews. And when you read this article, well, let's read the headline: "The last Jews in Ethiopia prepare for the promised land." Ethiopia may be the only country in the world where all of the Jews move en masse to Israel, the last of the wanderers on the way. So I'm going to let you read this article, but I'm just going to tell you in just what it's all about. They've been taking, when you read my book, you're going to understand really in detail what's been going on in Ethiopia, the land to the south of Israel. And over the course of years, Israel has been taking the Ethiopian Jews out of Ethiopia and bringing them back home to their homeland. And so this article right here is disclosing to us the number of people that are becoming out and what's going to be happening in the near future. As you can see here, the Shabbat airlift of nearly 15,000 Jews from Ethiopia in 1991 stroked the emotions of Israel, which always has wondered why all the Jews in the world do not come home. Now, they are coming home. And this article will get a little bit into it. It talks about the airlift known as Operation Solomon, which is also recorded in my book. And every time that there was a movement, it's been recorded in my book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth. So we do know that the Lord is very active, taking his people out of the different nations, north, east, west, and south, and bringing them back home to fulfill his word. Everything that he is saying to us is coming to pass. Now, let's look at another prophecy, and this concerns the temple, the third temple that's going to be rebuilt. And there's been a lot of news in 2012 about the PLO, and the Arabs are worried that Israel is going to rebuild their third temple, and the new people being elected will be the people that give the orders to rebuild that third temple. Now, only God knows for sure if that is the case, if the new leaders are going to do that. But we do know by the end of the day, this prophecy will be fulfilled, and what we're seeing in the news is driving us parallel to fulfill this prophecy. So you're going to see all the different prophecies about the Lord warning about how the Antichrist is going to go into this temple. He's going to sit into this temple when it's rebuilt. And of course, we know that from the Word of God that he's going to do this in exactly 3.5 years into the 7-year tribulation. And he's going to tell everybody that he is God. All right, so you can read the Psalm, you can read Daniel, where Daniel 9:27, we see at this point the Antichrist will confirm a covenant with Israel for 7 years. That's the length of the tribulation period. And exactly 1,260 days after he confirms the covenant with Israel, then he's going to go into this temple, and that's when he's going to tell everybody that he's God and enforce his mark, the Antichrist mark. And of course, in Matthew chapter 24, verse 15, Jesus again mentions what God told Daniel. And he tells him right here, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whosoever readeth, let him understand. So where's the holy place? Well, it's the new temple. It's going to be the third temple that will be rebuilt. Now, when we go into the news today, as I said, there is concern about what's going on in the Middle East as far as this third temple. And let me tell you this. Well, let me give you a little bit of insight about the article first, and then I'll connect the dots here. Muslims claim Netanyahu plans to build false holy temple. Netanyahu's latest building plan for Jerusalem is none other than for the third temple, claims the Al-Aqsa Foundation. So the people who were running the area, this Dome of the Rock, that is maintained by the Muslims. Now, Israel recaptured this in 1967 during that war against the Palestinians and some of the other Arab nations that bordered them. So ever since then, the PLO and the Arabs and all the Islamic states have wanted to get this back. They wanted East Jerusalem back, and of course this fulfills Zechariah 12:3, where in the last days there will be a burdensome stone for all the nations that come against Israel, and Jerusalem would be a burdensome stone, which we're already seeing. So what this article was telling us here is the Al-Aqsa officials warned that a new liquid is, and this is the name of the Israeli party that it is going into what they think is going to be elected, is planning to build a false third holy temple and divide the Muslim compound. The Muslim paranoia of the Jews on the Temple Mount has reached panic stages, and of course, I believe this without a shadow of a doubt. I've been watching it ever since 1976, and for the past few years, there's been more news in 2 years than I've seen in 36 on the rebuilding of the temple and people being panicked over the Jews pressing for this third temple. And of course, this goes hand in hand with Mark 13:8, the birth pangs of the last days. So, the Temple Mount has reached panic stages even before the week's Ludic primaries that placed the Jewish leadership faction leader Moshe Feiglin in the ranking that assures his election to the Knesset in January. It says the Arab world media constantly report of Jewish invasions of the Temple Mount every time Jews try to ascend the holy site. Israeli authorities enforce the Muslim Waqf policy that forbids Jews to pray there or carry prayer books or other holy articles with them. So in other words, let me give you one in a nutshell. Even though the Jews recaptured this area, Jerusalem, they allow the Muslims to control it. And since 1967, the Muslims have really taken force, and they forbid the Jews to go up in this area and pray. And of course, this is in part and parcel because they're afraid that someday down the line, they're going to want to build their third temple, and they're trying to keep these, what they call the radical Jews, away. And of course, we know the Word of God from the Word of the Lord that no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to keep the Jews away from this area, because that temple will be rebuilt again. So look for in the news more conflicts concerning this area. Now, when you read the article, you're going to find out that they're worried about the digging that's going on under here. When I was in Israel, I saw the planks, and I visited this area down here. And this part of the report will give you a little bit of that information, what I saw. The Palestinian Authority and the Islamic Movement branch in the Galilee frequently claimed that Israel is digging underneath the Temple Mount to cause its collapse. So this is what they're saying. We don't want these people up here. They're afraid that it's going to cause a collapse. Now, let's hypothetically say this. If that were to ever occur, and the digging did collapse this area right here, I can assure you right now that every Muslim around the world would want to invade Israel, because they would see that as the most aggressive to their third most holy site of the Muslims, and that alone would probably cause the Psalm 83 war, one of the wars that haven't been fulfilled yet, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about that more. But I just wanted to show you that the news is filled with signs of the last days, specific signs that Jesus told us to look for. So let's go back to my site. Now we're going to move in to the Psalm 83 signs, because we're seeing daily signs now that this war is pending, and this war is definitely coming up quicker than most people think. On the left-hand side, you'll see all the people that are going to be coming against Israel, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see the modern day names of those people. These were taken from the Old Testament. This is where we're living today, modern day. So you're going to see Syria, you're going to see the Palestinians in Gaza, and Egypt. I'm going to be talking about Egypt, and of course Saudi Arabia, all right, the Saudis, Ishmael, the father of the Arabs. And anytime that these nations are in the news and it shows us parallel with prophecy, then I'm going to have to report on it, because this prophecy shows us, when you read it down here, that these nations right here are all going to come together as a Confederate legion to try to wipe Israel out, and saying that the name of Israel isn't even more in remembrance. In other words, wipe them out. So what do we have here? Also, I need to connect Isaiah chapter 17 verse 1 and also Jeremiah chapter 49 verses 23 through 27, and I'll tell you why. Because this is a prophecy specifically about Syria in the last days, and how Syria is going to be destroyed. Damascus left in ruin in its heaps, and we're seeing that right now, and I'm going to show you a little bit of what's going on today over in Damascus. Keep in mind, very, very specific prophecies. He's pinpointed the cities for us right here, and this was written thousands of years ago, and it's happening right now while all the rest of the prophecies are taking place. So, knowing that, let me go over here, and we're going to connect with the first article, and you're going to see it right here. This is important because it says the Saudi king Abdullah clinically dead report. So he's been the ruler of Saudi Arabia for a long time. Now, why is this so important? Because Saudi Arabia is in the mix in Psalm 83 war, that they will be attacking Israel during that war. So we know in the book of Daniel chapter 2, the Lord shows us in that scripture, or in the book of Daniel, that God, he puts kings up and he takes kings down. And it looks like because of the Arab Spring and what's going on, there's a massive change that's going on, and I really believe, and so do the other people that have been following the Lord and his Bible prophecies, the warning, we believe that every one of the leaders that are being put in place now are being set there to fulfill the Psalm 83 war and the subsequent prophecies afterward. So what do we have here? Let me just show you what's most important, because it just gives you a little bit of information about the king. He's been in a coma, how long he's been in a coma. But the most important to me would be this: failing health, the old age, as well as the death of the king's half-brothers have raised concerns about the future of the oil-rich country in the face, get this, of anti-government demonstrations. Nation after nation, and we're seeing it right now. We saw it last year, specifically when I'm going to target Egypt. We're seeing Syria right now, and now we've had problems going on in Jordan with demonstrations just recently, and now there's the worry about the anti-government demonstrations to get rid of the king there, or the ruling faction that's been in power for so long, and to go into another leadership. So all of this, I believe, that is going to lead to the leader taking position that will join forces in that Psalm 83 war. So again, let me go back very quickly to my site, and you'll see now Syria. Of course, keep in mind about the prophecies that I just read to you in Syria, and you can always just go back up to my site when you get to my site from my YouTube channel. Just keep in mind about Damascus and what's going to happen with Syria, because Syria is getting very, very close to being that prophecy being fulfilled. So let me go right to it, and you'll see what's going on here. It says, and this, of course, came out from yesterday, Syria launches airstrikes as combat rages in Damascus. The Syrian warplanes attacked towns in the country's north and east and killed at least 5 citizens. And a strike on the oil or the olive oil press as fighting raged in the capital Damascus on Tuesday, opposition activists said. The latest fighting follows recent battlefield gains by the rebels in the struggle to topple the President Bashar al-Assad, but it is far from clear if the strategic breakthrough is likely. More than 90 people were killed on Tuesday, according to the Syrian Observation of the Human Rights of the Britain-based group. So, what to take from this article? Well, we see the nation is fighting against itself. That's a fulfillment of Matthew chapter 24:7. But it's also a fulfillment, a prelude to the complete fulfillment of Isaiah 17 and also Jeremiah chapter 49. And as the fighting gets closer and closer to Damascus, keep in mind what Bashar al-Assad said, that if he was under the position or put in place where he was going to lose power, he would attack Israel. And if that happens, and Israel would strike at Syria without a doubt very, very rapidly, and that in itself could cause the Psalm 83 war from taking place. So let's move on to the next article here. And this is today's news. Syria conflict. Twin bombs blast shake Damascus suburb. This is never happened before. All right. The city of Damascus was never completely destroyed, leveled, like we see in Isaiah chapter 17:1. But now they're getting very, very close, and it certainly looks at the Isaiah 17:1 is going to be fulfilled very, very soon. It looks like it from these pictures. It looks like it's almost there now. So let's take a look at what this video does for us. That's assuming that the video will come up. There it is.
The number of casualties is really rising. But also to remind our audience that this area, the government has appointed local committees or popular committees from the locals there who are armed to protect the area. So it is hard to understand how these explosives managed to get into the area. At the same time, while these blasts are taking place, the government forces are still using heavy artillery and machine gun forts, other rebel-held areas in Damascus as well.
Why would somebody go for this particular area?
Many analysts here believe that there are two interpretations for the situation. Either the rebels want to make minorities fearful and join the armed forces, or the interpretation could be blamed also on the government who wants to scare minorities from the Salafi and terrorist groups. These kind of double accusations coming from both sides have been ongoing for a long time, and the regime from day one of the crisis in Syria was warning people against Salafi extremist groups, and such an attack would fall into the analysis that the government is giving for the situation. It is hard to know at the moment who is to blame and who is there behind the attack, but as we have seen throughout the crisis in Syria, that both sides of the conflict are blaming putting the blame on the others.
All right, so there you have it. There's the proof. The Lord pointed out Damascus. You see that is coming. And my question would be to you at this point, if you see the very things that the Lord showed you what to look for, and you're watching them live, taking effect, all of them, not just some of them, but all of them at the same time, why in the world would you reject the free salvation that Jesus wants to hand to you? He wants to save you. He wants you to bring you away from the trouble that's going to befall the earth. And if you think the earth right now, our society's in turmoil, we haven't seen anything yet. Wait until you get placed into the 7-year tribulation if you receive this free gift of the Lord's salvation. So let's move on to the next, here we go, to the next article here. And you'll see it says, missiles for the rebels may spell the end of Assad. Now keep in mind when I go over this, Assad stated that if he saw that he was going to lose his power, he was going to attack Israel. This is the second time I mentioned it. I know that. I did it on purpose because I want you to just recognize what's going on in the Middle East so that you can watch as they close in on Bashar al-Assad what he does. If he launches just one missile that has sarin gas or chemical weapons at Israel, all the cards on the table will spill, and then war will be on the table very, very quickly. Now, it says, censors of the war crimes, 40,000 dead, and sanctions have not stopped Assad, but rebels aimed with new missiles may spell his end. And of course, there was a news article today that I saw that they came in, the rebels, and they took this helicopter out right very, very close to Damascus. So this just tells us and reinforces the fact that they're getting very, very close to the capital. And when that happens, there's going to be some large reprisals coming down the pike here. So that's what we really need to watch for. So let me move on to the next one. And this now, we've already dealt with Syria. And now we're going to mention the Palestinians, because Palestinians are also earmarked as one of the nations that will be attacking Israel in the Psalm 83 war. Now, this article says this: the PA, if Arafat was poisoned, will go to Hague. The PA leaders say they'll petition the international court if there's an investigation that shows Arafat was poisoned. In other words, what they're trying to do is kill off the leadership of Israel. They know that if they can go to the international court, and the international court will look at Bibi, who they call Bibi, who was the prime minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and make it so that he is a tyrant and a killer, then he can weaken the Israeli government. But obviously, if you know Psalm 83, we know that no matter what the Palestinian organization does, they're not going to win. And we know this because we know the outcome of the Psalm 83 war. But it says Palestinian Authority leaders will petition the international court in The Hague if an investigation finds the proof of the late PLO leader and the head Yasser Arafat was poisoned, an official said. If it is proved that Arafat was poisoned, we will go to the international court. Obviously, where else were they going to be going here? The head of the PA Commission investigating Arafat's death, referring to the international court. And this is, by the way, one of the reasons why the Palestinian organization is going to the UN. It's going to be this week, I believe, and they're trying to get a new status in the UN so that they can file petitions to the international court. Get rid of this here. And so, again, prophecies telling us who's going to come against Israel, and we see it's the very same people that the Lord was talking about, and this is why I'm bringing your attention to these news articles. Let me go on to this next one here. This is, of course, now we're going to go to Egypt, because Egypt has been in the news. They're rioting today again. Why is this important? Because in Isaiah chapter 19, the Lord told us in the last days that the Egyptians would rise up against the Egyptians, and they would be given over to a cruel leader. And we know that the current president, President Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood president, who are now creating Sharia law, that this Morsi guy looks like he's going to be this cruel leader. And what we do know so far, without a shadow of a doubt, part of the Isaiah chapter 19 prophecy is being fulfilled as we're almost seeing now a civil war again, like we saw last year that deposed Mubarak. So let's take a look at what the news has to say.
Egyptian police fired tear gas at protesters amassed in Tahrir Square. But still, the demonstrations against what has been seen as a dictator-like power grab by the president show no sign of ending. Over 100,000 people are calling on Mohamed Morsi to leave after he gave himself authority beyond the reach of the courts. Archie's Tom Barton is in Cairo.
A running street battle has been going on in the streets around Tahrir Square between a large group of largely young male protesters and the police there. All throughout the night there were tear gas canisters being fired into the crowds, the protesters picking those up and throwing them back at the police, lighting fires in doorways, pulling branches off trees to light those, and tearing up large sections of pavement, creating blocks about the size of a fist to throw at the police as well. The police vans this morning absolutely battered by those missiles, and still going on. The police firing tear gas canisters into a group of protesters. That was accompanied by the central protest. The hardcore of that still camped out in the middle of Tahrir Square, calling for Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi to rescind that declaration that he made, giving himself sweeping powers last Thursday, which has caused such a furious reaction. Morsi himself has tried to calm the situation. He said, look, I'm not the same as Mubarak, which is what a lot of people are chanting down in the square, that you've done the same as Mubarak. He said, I'm not the same. These powers are only temporary until Egypt can get its constitution and parliament sorted out. However, that's not really convinced many Egyptians from the more liberal sections of society. Protests all over Egypt, including a number of deaths in these protests. Morsi is going to have to work hard to try and calm these tensions and show people that he really doesn't want these powers permanently, as people here fear he does.
All right, so I'm going to let you watch the rest of this video at your own leisure, but now you get the idea of what I am talking about. There is no question that we are in the last days, and all of these events are events that the Lord warned about, and they're all, as I said, they're all happening at the same time. Now, in my book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, you'll see it here. You could subscribe to my YouTube channel down here, and also when you go into my home page right here, let me go there for a second. Once you get there, if you just found my site, let me show you. I know this video will be playing here, but scroll down and you'll see this picture right here. Just click right on the book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth. And this is a free download ebook for you to have. This is my gift to you of 36 years of my life, documenting all of the prophecies, showing you that without a shadow of a doubt, we're in the last days. So take the gift today, read it, and I'm praying that the Holy Spirit will speak to your heart as He's speaking to hundreds, actually thousands of people across the world that have gotten this book in their hands. They see that the God is a real God. Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, as we see in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. He is the first and the last. He is the true God, and you need to know that. Because why do you need to know it? Time is running out. He loves you. He wants you in His kingdom, and He wants to show you all the facts and the evidence that He is coming soon. Thanks again, everyone, and God bless you all.